And
Right.
hello and welcome.
Yeah, welcome everybody to When Meditation Just Isn't Working. And Lauren Polly and I'm Georgia Watson. Hi, everybody. We had this conversation a couple weeks back where we were just chit-chatting, and we both realized that meditation was a huge part of our lives just maybe about 5-6 years ago. And what we've changed from then until now, what we were looking for at the time from meditation, and it wasn't really quite actualizing. And it's just that conversation opened up into something where we were like, well, let's invite other people to join and listen and kind of share some of our experiences of what we've played with. And if you're listening and if you're on here, you probably have a desire for more. You probably have been searching your whole life looking for different things and finding little bits that worked in some modalities. And then also there's just this whole aspect of meditation where sometimes it doesn't actually give you the thing that you're kind of looking for, whether it's peace or a sense of really like knowing yourself and having your being. So one of my first questions that I have for Lauren is what kind of meditation did you do, and what was your life like when you were in the midst of being like a full-time almost meditator?
In the write-up, George and I called ourselves recovering meditation-aholics, and I love that because we were both two people that were really, really in it. And if you all are seekers, you may kind of have a similar energy where you find something that gives you just a taste of what you're looking for, and before you know it, you're in deep. And that's exactly what occurred for me. I found yoga first. I've always been a dancer. So yoga was a nice sidestep of being able to move my body and explore the world through my body, which is kind of how I've always learned and processed things, I would say. And then once I got into that, my yoga teacher introduced me to this really deep practice of tantric meditation. It was a beautiful, beautiful professor of I forget what school he's from, but he's tantric meditation based in transcendental meditation. And then he took all the Sanskrit learnings that he had with his PhD and interwove it. So it was a deep meditation practice that was about an hour a day that I would do. On top of that, I was learning Sanskrit. I was actually thinking about going back for my PhD in Sanskrit studies at the time that I found some of the tools we're going to be talking about today. And what I was really looking for at the time was more of a sense of peace and ease in my own space. And then after doing yoga for so long and kind of getting the hit of that relaxation and being more connected to my body, the meditation felt like it was taking me deeper. And I always describe it as like touching into this black velvet inner stillness that I have at the core. And it was fascinating because I was looking for that and being able to like not only have that on the mat, but then my exploration started of how do I have that when I'm not on the mat or seated cross-legged with my eyes closed. And that's where my exploration really started to dive into the tools we're talking about today of like, how can I not only have it here in this crystal moment, but actually have my life change and match that.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So did you find that in meditation and in these practices, or was it with finding other tools that began?
I would say the meditation definitely started to permeate my life a little bit, but I, if you know me at all, I have a mental health history, I guess I would say. My book is called The Other Side of Bipolar. So a lot of the techniques I've been seeking throughout my life is to find some sort of like ease with my inner world and emotional state. And the meditation really helped with that at first. But I remember going into a store and having an anxiety attack. And the only tool that I had at that time was to sit down cross-legged in the middle of the store and meditate for 30 minutes. So not that I could find a sense of peace, but if I could have enough of a pull yourself together, get up and be able to walk out of the store, that was my only compensation, quote unquote, at that time. So for me, it was really looking at translating off of the mat and something more functional. And that's when I found these beautiful tools from Access Consciousness that we're going to be digging into tonight. Something that I could use in real time, in the moment, that was just as effective and allowed me to actually be the space of walking, talking meditation. And that was the biggest aha that I had of like, wow, I could ask a question and have that same sense of space, which is a lot easier to do mid-anxiety attack than sitting down for 30 minutes and meditating. Yeah. So for me, it was just a practicality move, I would say. And then it just exploded from there.
Wow. So what if anybody watching does have anxiety? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I know that anxiety was something that I had. It's funny because my anxiety developed more when I was doing the meditation than before. Well, actually,
Interesting.
that's not necessarily true. It changed. Instead of my mental chatter of like waking up in the morning and just feeling kind of generalized anxiety, it was more like, I'm not doing my purpose. I need to be doing more. I only did 2 hours and 45 minutes yesterday, and I took a vow to do 3 hours. So I had a pretty intense level of anxiety too. And I don't have that anymore, thanks to these incredible tools of Access Consciousness. One of them being Access Bars, which is a body process where you can just actually use gentle touch on 32 points on the head. And it's just this gentle pressure. And sometimes it takes about an hour, sometimes an hour and a half. And for me, that completely mitigated any anxiety. Like I was on, I took Xanax for a while too, because I was like, this is just not what life is supposed to be. And I had the things in my life that are supposed to give you peace. I had interesting work. I had my own hat business. So I did these one-of-a-kind hats, and my life was easy. My mom took care of lots of things in my life that made my life easy. But sometimes even when things in your life seem like they're okay, if you're not feeling wonderful, then that's actually not the fullest expression of what life can be. So what were some of the tools or questions that you used mid-anxiety attack?
Mm-hmm. I would say definitely the what am I aware of? And for me, that was such a beautiful gift because it allowed me to be aware of the fact that I was aware. And I invite all of you who've been playing with these tools for a while, I know we've got some old timers on this call, actually allowing yourself to sink into the depth of that awareness. Because there's the beginning awareness of, yeah, I'm aware, awesome. And then there's deeper layers to like how aware that you actually are, where if you are in the middle of a shopping mall and your head is getting super loud and busy and your heart rate is increasing and you're having those anxiety signs and the peace that you know is possible goes away, is that actually you, or do you have that really subtle awareness of the people around you? And so for me, these tools, the questions of like, what am I aware of, how allowing myself to have that, and then the bars, allowing that to really permeate, there's a space and a peace that I receive when I'm on the table, receiving bars and also gifting them as well, that really starts to open up. And for me, it was like that deep black velvet I talked about in meditation, but even more resonant, if that makes sense. It just allowed it to like permeate the molecules of my body and my being so that when I am aware and there's a lot of stuff going on, going, what am I aware of? Knowing that I am aware and inviting the energy of the bars and all the sessions that I've received, all the sessions that I've gifted, and inviting that energy into the moment actually really relieves a lot of that. So it's a beautiful, very effective tool. And, it's not that you don't meditate anymore. I'm one who still likes to sit for a seated practice every now and then. But being able to do something that goes a little deeper and permeates more into the moment, I think is really, really key.
Yeah. What that kind of reminds me of too, Lauren, is in meditation, like for me, the goal was to not have any thoughts and to just be. What the bars really achieves is actually being that without having to try. So for me, it was a lot of trying and practicing, and that term practicing meditation, it's there kind of on purpose because there's nobody who's like, hey, I am a professional meditator and I got this down and I'm the best at it. Like you can't really do that because it's one of those really, really, really challenging things. And with the bars, the goal is receiving, but you don't have to do anything to achieve that. So in this reality, receiving isn't something that's really done or talked about or practiced, but to just lay there and to not have to repeat a mantra. You can have your eyes open or closed. You can even have a movie playing or not, and to be able to talk or not, but to be able to have that energy of what like a really beautiful meditation experience for me would have been like having that on the table, just even chit chatting with friends at the same time. Like to me, that opened up a whole world, because with meditation, my practice had a whole lot to do with removing things. Like, don't visit shopping malls just for the fun of it. If you need to go, just go. But where's the pleasure of just going and enjoying anything? I took a vow of no chastity, no meat, no eggs, no alcohol. So a lot of it was like actually about excluding the things of the world in order to be able to have something greater than this reality. But then that kind of excludes the joy and sweetness and pleasure of the body, and the pleasure of just being alive and interacting with the world. And really, there was a lot of judgment involved too with, if you're not in deep nature, if you're living in a bustling city, are you allowed to have everything that somebody in, meditating in a hut has access to? And for me, like, I'd like to be in a world and have a reality where no matter like what your age, no matter what you believe, no matter who you are or what you've done in the past, like that you can have joy, you can have sweetness, you can have beautiful moments in life where you're connected with you, connected with all molecules. And for me, the bars has been one of the things that's really helped me to have that, and not have that be some kind of fantasy or goal in the future, but to really actually have it in my life.
I love that. And it's so fascinating because when you speak, I didn't have this awareness before, so thank you. A lot of my meditation yoga practices was a solitary thing. Yoga, a little bit more, I had a community, we would kind of play and hold each other upside down, that kind of thing. So that was a little bit more playful and engaging. But meditation was like, I'm going to do it on my own. I'm going to sit in solitude and do this. And it was fascinating for me. I've always been in the mindset of I've got to fix myself.
Yes.
Or I got to pull myself together, or I have to kind of like seek and go, go, go. The bars actually allowed me to like lay and have someone touch me. And oh my God, like my body loves to be touched. That in of itself is so healing. And being in the company of someone who's seeking that same depth and clarity that you are, and actually being able to gift to each other when you do trades, that really changed a lot. It brought me out of my solitude bubble and my fix-it bubble, I would say, and actually opened my eyes to receiving and allowing other people in my world, which I was not very good at when I was younger,
Yeah. And we both have had that, and probably maybe several others of you watching too. If you've been a perfectionist at all, or tried to look for your flaws in order to fix them, in order to be more, have more, create more, it can be one of those self-perpetuating cycles where you just start to see what's wrong with you, which I've really learned to see this in a different way. Because literally everything I've gone into where I'm like, okay, so what's wrong about me here? There's a tool in Access Consciousness that what's your biggest wrongness can also be your biggest strongness. So it's not like this isn't like one of those philosophical ideas. It's actually like, what if literally everything that you've thought was wrong about you? Like for me, the thing I thought was wrong about me with this meditation path, I wasn't achieving what I thought I would from it. I thought I wasn't like perfect enough. I thought I wasn't. It's like I wasn't doing enough. But then if I look at the other side of that, what's the strength? Well, what was I actually being? What am I being? What am I capable of that's beyond a doing and a proving of spiritualness, or perfection or purity and all that stuff. So
it's also interesting to look at, like, not just spirituality but religion in general, of like how much of the purity of the intent at the beginning was really to give you a hit of what it was like to be. But then throughout time, throughout space, other people's points of view, there's a structure that's built. And with that structure comes judgment, it comes rules, it comes very, you do this thing this long, that's going to get it where it needs to go. And it's fascinating for me. I've always had the awareness with any kind of spiritual or religion at all of like, what was the original intent of the person who created this? And that is beautiful, because with that point of view, you're actually able to engage with everything without the judgment. Because like, what if meditation still was able to give you a little piece, and then you could add the bars in with it? What if there was a question? What if there was a book that you could read on spirit, without the actual judgment factor of what's wrong, what's good, what's bad? all of this stuff, you actually get to see what works for you in every given moment and not have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And I think so frequently that's kind of where I went of like, oh, I found this bright new shiny thing here with Access. It's amazing. Oh, I guess I'm not going to meditate and do yoga anymore. And then my body went, I like to move. Don't take that from me. And then there's still times where like sitting with my mantra actually feels beautiful. So without the structure and the point of view that that's what's needed or that's how I'm going to perfect myself, but wow, this is our energy right now in this moment that could contribute. That's actually something very different. So being able to have access to everything without a judgment, like Georgia was saying, including everything, what is at your disposal? You know, and that might be kind of a cool thing to start opening up the lines of communication. What have you all tried to meditate before? Did it work? Did it not work? What are you looking for? Like that deeper, the deeper ask, the bigger ask, the deeper intent. Anyone want to jump on or type in the chat? Mary Lauren? Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
I try to just to express my opinion about meditation because before Access, I tried, but I was taught that for meditation you have to practice every day, and if you do not practice maybe 30 minutes less or 1 hour if you can every day, it's useless. So I have that belief that if I will get that peace, I have to practice every day. It's kind of something very heavy for me, so I won't able to do that. And with Access and the bars, it's just whenever I want, whatever I can, and one is available, I have the opportunity to receive. So it is very different in the level of obligation, maybe. I felt with meditation. So
very cool.
And I don't know why I was so attracted by the title of your Zoom for tonight, but I think that I have something to manage with that, and maybe to be open, as you say. If I want to meditate, it's okay. It's the energy that is required for the moment from me. Just ask the question, we'll receive the way. So nice to have that discussion, because sometimes we try to include things instead of including everything, as consciousness includes everything and just nothing. But sometimes we try to say, oh, it's not good, it's okay. So thank you for sharing your experience.
Oh, thank you, Mary. Yeah. I think that's the cool thing is like how many of you have thought that it's you either have to follow the rules to use it at all, or you can't use it at all. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you got to be all in, baby, or you're not in at all. And anywhere and everywhere you've been functioning like that, will you please destroy and uncreate it all? That's a lot. Right, wrong, good, bad, puck, pod, all nine shorts, toys, and beyond, right? And that's so fascinating. And that's what I see over and over again, especially with the mental health that I've been working with the last couple of years. It's like, okay, I'm going to do this thing or not, or I'm going to do this thing or not, or people like leapfrog where they're like, I only want to do this thing and now I'm going to move over here and exclude this completely. For me, a whole success factor of just inner peace, which so much of us are looking for, but also being a complete and whole being, a wealth of being, is being able to include every single thing at your disposal, because who knows what's going to work in any given moment. But the rules and the regulation really act as like this like narrowing of possibility.
And it's what somebody else has formulated too. So that could totally work for them. But what if a lot of these spiritual practices and meditation practices and yoga and all these things that are set up with these structures, do they really include you, or are you supposed to apply yourself to them that and have it work? So then if it doesn't work, who's wrong? It's not the path, or, it's not the it's like you are. But what if that's actually just not correct? Like, what if you're not wrong or broken in any way? What if no matter what you've tried and what result you've gotten out of anything or haven't gotten out of anything, what if that's just giving you more information for what you'd like to have in your life? What if you could create your life as almost like an art piece where you can just add something, and then if you don't like that anymore, you can just kind of take that away? Or it's like, what if it can be much more malleable than having a set of refined kind of structures of this is the right way of doing it? Because a lot of people who do develop systems and structures for things, they do have the point of view and the perspective that it's right and it works, and that's how it can propagate and spread. And people are like, oh, well, I want to have that, or I want to be right, or I want to, have that thing that they're talking about. And it's really, really different when you can actually add something to your life that you don't have to then judge yourself based from. The meditation practice I did before in talks in these public programs that we would do, or, that I would hear, and we would, I don't know, but just like this outreach stuff. It was like, they would say that you can add it to any religion or any lifestyle. Yet, the first thing you had to do was remove meat and alcohol from your life for 6 months in order to even get initiated, to even learn the meditation. So it's not exactly true sometimes when people say that you can add something to your lifestyle. They're actually asking for you to adopt their points of view. So Lauren did use the clearing statement at one point, but any points of view or perspectives that you've taken on from anyone, any religion, any system, any structure that don't work for you, would you be willing to destroy and uncreate all of that? Right, wrong, good, bad, all nine, POC, shorts, boys, and beyonds. The clearing statement is just another tool that you can add if you like. If it works for me, because sometimes there's this energy that starts to build up. Like, I don't know if you guys have noticed, like when we talk about something, it kind of like builds and builds, and then just running the clearing statement almost like vacuums it away. And then it's like, oh, okay, now we can talk about something else. Now, play with other ideas. So
yeah. The sacredness comes up when you're speaking about that. And that's the interesting thing. There's kind of 2 points with that. Like the sacredness of, like, I'm sure with the practice that you did, I know it was very heavily spiritual, me as well. And there was a sacred routine I was studying the teachings of a 7th century monk, and that was like the sacred guide that we were following, the structure based off of him. So it's interesting too. It's not just that it's a formula, which is totally is. It's a structure. It's a formula, because most people are looking for the how-to. Well, how do you do it? Let me give you a system that's a how-to, so you can access the same thing I did. But then there's the sacredness that comes on top of it. Like, this is the way it is, and this is what connects you to the divine. So before you know it, it's not just, oh, that structure doesn't work for me. That's a sacred structure. So heaven forbid I question it or don't utilize it to a T, I'm not doing the full effect. Georgia, like you said at the very beginning, was amazing, of like, oh my God, I've only done 2.5 hours of meditation. I took a vow for 3. And it's amazing how much that sacredness and that significance really gets built up. So all the sacredness and significance you've given any system, including access, anything. Will you please destroy and uncreate it all? Yes. There's a clearing statement again, right? Wrong, good, bad, POC, POD, all 9 shorts, boys, and beyonds, And just a piece of information, and this may read for some of you and may not. I did tantric yoga, which was basically what they called householder yoga. Back in the day, if you all have been doing yoga practices or meditation practices, the majority of those things are based in renunciatory practices, which basically means body's bad, the world is bad, go live in a cage and get out and go by yourself. Those are renunciatory practices. I chose tantric, which is a householder practice, which basically meant it was about, we talked about like dipping the silk. So you dip the silk in the dye to get more vibrant, but then you pull it out and go out into the world with it. So it was like dipping into meditation to then be able to go out into the world more fully. But my teacher had said over and over again, he said, people who are dabbling with yoga and meditation and aren't looking at, again, the intent that it came from, or what maybe the energy is leading you towards, they're missing that a lot of the practices they're doing are based in renunciatory practices. So before they know it, they have a hard time being around people. They have a lot of judgment of being out in the world. There's a lot of heaviness that comes up. The anxiety starts to come in. So whatever that is, whatever piece of information that can unlock for you, wherever you may have been engaging with something that was supposed to be about exclusion and not inclusion, and all of the judgment that's really been ingrained and insidiously refined specificities, all of that, and all the codes of assimilation. I'm just throwing a big clearing in here. Don't mind me. Will you destroy and uncreate all of it? Yeah, times a godzillion, right, wrong, good, bad, POC, POD, all nine shorts, boys, and beyonds. When he said that one day, I was like, wow, that's fascinating, because I watched my yoga students do this. They'd come to me from other classes of like, I have a really hard time being around people. I'm not quite sure what's going on. There's this blinder that we do where we don't actually look deeper at like, what am I engaging with here? So how clear can we be, you know?
And I wonder if people would even play with those, because sometimes it's like, oh, well, I could give up meat and then just try out this meditation, or I can, you know, spend more time on my own. But yeah, it's like if we were really, really open and clear about what paths really were, or what the whole deal is from the beginning, there'd probably be fewer people engaging with them and playing with them, or they would be doing it in a different way because they'd actually be getting all the information. So any of the secrets and lies that we've bought or sold any lifetime about this stuff, can we destroy and uncreate it all?
Yeah.
Right, wrong, good, bad, all nine, POD, POC, shorts, boys, and beyonds. And I really am grateful for this new like definition or undefinition of consciousness that I've heard, which does come from Access Consciousness. It's that consciousness includes everything and judges nothing. So if it really like, if consciousness, if awareness, if having and being everything we are can actually include everything and doesn't have to have an exclusion or a pushing away or a judgment of absolutely anything at all, like how much more freedom is involved in that than I need to do this, or those kind of people are bad, or there are all these little, and Lauren said refined judgments too. Those are the judgments that you almost don't even realize you have them. It's like, well, I'm aware of blah, 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 or I see in this person's aura, blah, 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 or I know that what they're doing is just projection, or they're being a mirror for me. Like any of those keywords, those are actually refined judgments. And all that is, it's like refined sugar, where you take something and then it gets milled and processed so much that it's this fine little dust. It's this fine little judgment where you don't even realize it's judgment anymore at all. It's like this, there are some things that we've kind of adapted or taken on in our lives that have helped us get through certain situations that might be challenging, but do we really need to be holding on to these kinds of judgments and things? And so any refined judgments that we've picked up over the years, can we destroy and uncreate all of those? Yes. Right, wrong, good, bad, all nine, POD, POC, shorts, boys, and beyonds.
And I just feel like interjecting, it's not about anyone's right, anyone's wrong. It's not that the people who do spirituality are wrong. They're doing what works for them. You know, and so that's interesting having a conversation like this. I was looking at the title of like, how can we have a conversation about what's beyond meditation without making meditation wrong? Or the people who choose it wrong. And that's really not where Georgia and I function from. It's like, what else is possible? What can you add to it? Where can you use it? And again, what is beyond it? Whether that's beyond the practice of meditation or beyond what you identify or define as the practice of meditation. Because there's a definition, there's that refined judgment again of, oh, this is what it is. This is the outcome that's going to come from it. That's actually not an open question either. What if there was more possible? So it's just fascinating looking at the deeper layers. What are the kind of practices you're engaging with? Have your eyes open, have your awareness, do your research, you know, and look at what is going to create more for you in the moment. And if you feel a sense of expansion, do it.
Yeah, and some people really kind of respond to having a set list of instructions of do this and then you do this. And then for me, I'm a bit of a rebel. So I actually like relish and take pleasure in not following rules, but finding my own way. So there's a lot of conflict that can be created if you're actually more of a rebel than you really acknowledge. Like I didn't realize I was a rebel. If you would have asked me a few years ago, I'd been like, well, no, I never even rebelled as a teenager. But like, how much is it a rebellion to at 19 not have even any drink of alcohol? Like for my 21st birthday, I don't even know what I did. I was meditating somewhere. Like that's its own version of rebellion. So if any of you have have ever made yourself wrong for not being able to follow like the systems and structures and orders that you've been trying out? Just what if you really just kind of gave yourself permission to pick and choose the most delicious, wonderful, pleasurable, enjoyable, and contributory aspects of your life? One thing that both Lauren and I, and many of you probably listening, have tried that is so fun is adding the bars. You don't have to give up literally anything, except for maybe, I guess if you call it, you could give up an hour of your time. But what are you actually creating with that? It's like this, for me, running bars is just like one of the pleasures of life that I wouldn't give it up for anything. I love it so much.
And it's amazing how and that's where the conversation that George and I were having, we just kind of got together, like, let's have a chit chat and just see where we're at. And like you had mentioned, you had just had your bars run, and I went, oh my God, like it's amazing to me how something so simple creates so much change. And for me, it's like that reset button. Whenever my mind starts to get a little bit busy, whenever there starts to be a little bit more angst, it resets me back to that deeper velvet stillness, harmonious state where I'm like, oh, that's actually me. Things just get easier to deal with. Not only to deal with, but to actually start to create in the moment. There was just something that kind of flew in and then flew back out again. I love when that happens. I guess it's being spoken while not being spoken to. Yeah, but to be able to like actually, that was the thing. That was my question when I went to my first bars class. I was like, I'm a meditator and I love it. Is this going to impact my meditation? And the woman was like, it may take it deeper. It doesn't mean you have to stop. It doesn't mean it has to change. It's just something to add to it. And I loved that point of view because it didn't make what I was choosing wrong. It didn't make what I was practicing wrong, or like you have to give it up to do something new, which a lot of systems do. It was just add this in and actually see what occurs. And after a while, I think I meditated my normal practice for about maybe like a year after my first bars class, my first bars session. And then after a while, it was like, oh, I actually don't require the structure anymore. Because I was getting so much relief from the 1 hour bar session. I was like, I wonder what I could do with those 3 hours of my day if I wasn't meditating, yoga, and chanting, and then I went, oh, look, the gift of time and space in my schedule. And then it became more of a choice. And the freedom.
I never had that. I had 5 years, 24 years old, where I didn't have that. Like, I had to schedule that in. I had to make sure it was there. So it was like, whoa, I could start making money. So I got a bunch of businesses and actually made them profitable.
Wow. It's a different space to play in, right?
Oh, it is.
Yeah. Hey, John, did you have something you wanted to add? You were unmuted for a little.
Yeah, it was just that question you asked before. And for me, I had started meditating because to get out of reaction. So I was always in reactive mode all the time, and it wasn't working for me. And a lot of the practices that I did seemed like they kind of excluded a lot of stuff that would bring up the reactions, So I started like trying to avoid anything that kind of brought up that reactive state, and it just made me smaller and smaller and smaller instead of expanding out, And I'm wondering if a lot of those practices and rules that they have out there is to try to avoid that reactive state and maintain that peace or whatever they try to maintain,
Yeah, but it's like, how do you not do that? You go into your cave.
I know, exactly.
As opposed to like being in the world and creating bigger and engaging deeper and more boldly while having that peace. And that's the difference I've noticed.
I know. And one thing too, I noticed from doing Access too, meditating before, it kind of dulled, I guess because of doing all that other stuff, trying to avoid the reactive part, it kind of dulled my sense of being. Whereas Access now, I get excited, I have joy, and everything just pops and it's fun and it's just way more engaged in life, And it's way more better than before.
I'm alive.
Yeah.
I just love that. And I love that you mentioned joy too, because I used to read Hafiz, and it was little moments in this, like, you've got your, I thought you were going to grab your Hafiz book for some reason. I was like, I feel like you would have one somewhere.
It's right here.
Yeah. But there was joy in that, but I wasn't seeing joy in it during my practice. Like, I didn't really know how to incorporate that. And people would tell me, like, you need to celebrate your life. You need to have fun. And I'm like, I really don't know how. My definition of fun before meditation was getting drunk. Like, I didn't have anything else before that. Like, and then being a little kid, I, played pretend a lot and enjoyed a lot of things. But also my dad passed away when I was 16. So that threw a wrench in my really happy childhood. It was like, there was the before that moment. And then after, I just kind of went straight to being a teenager and trying out drinking. And so when people said, like, you need to have some fun, I'm like, I'm not really sure how to do that. But you mentioned joy, John, and it reminded me of the mantra of access, which is funny. It's called the mantra because it's actually kind of a question. It's kind of something you can play with. You can add it at any time, but it doesn't have the significance of this is the most important phrase in the universe. So I just want to make that clear. But the mantra of access is all of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. And ease and joy, I think we have often just a sense of. Glory is exuberant expression and abundance in all things. So it's like those moments of, like, for me, I even see it as like joy amplified. It's like, whoa! Mm-hmm. Like almost like an orgasmic quality, or like this exuberant expression of, like, oh my gosh, I'm alive. And yeah, John, thank you so much for what you're saying, because I related a lot to what you said about feeling like that dulling that comes from kind of excluding lots of things. And I also want to say, like, hey, that can be a great tool to, like, avoid certain situations. If that's your best tool that you got at the time, like, I know I did that. Like, I didn't know how to interact with people at parties when I was doing the meditation. Like, if people were going and getting drunk, so I just didn't go to them. That worked for me at the time. But like now, I'd actually like to have a world, or have my world be that I could interact with anyone and anything and still have me. Like, any situation, I could deal with someone doing road rage at me, or someone like bullying me or hating me or lusting after me, or all these really kind of intense experiences, or even more intense than the things that I mentioned. And for me to still have me, like, that is like for me, the next level of beyond meditation, beyond just having your eyes closed and having the peace and space when you're by yourself, like to have that in daily life, and to be able to have it, and then in every regard. I just love that.
When I love your conversation. Ooh, do you hear an echo?
Just a tiny bit. It's really, it's low volume. So
testing 1, 2, 3. There we go. Oh, okay. I hear it in my head, which drives me nuts. But I love this conversation with Georgia, plus with what John was saying too. It's fascinating to really start looking at the word reaction. And I don't think people get how often they function like their reaction patterns are them. And we kind of operate like a push button system. We walk around with different push buttons, and people come and like, oh, I'm going to push this button by saying this thing to you, and I'm going to respond this way. And you go up to someone and you're like, okay, cool. I interact with them this way. I'm going to push that button. That's the response I'm going to get. And so before you know it, you have this whole conglomeration of a personality that's really based in reacting to your environment, to the people in it. And seeking out meditation, inner peace, any of those practices, really coming out of the reactionary patterns, allows you to kind of start undoing that a little bit, but really looking deeper with the bars and also with the tools of access of, if I wasn't in reaction to anything, if I wasn't operating of like pushing a button on someone else to get a reaction, or having buttons on myself where people go, oh, big red button, I'm going to push this one and have you react to me. What else is possible? You actually start to have more space to actually choose. And that to me is the huge gift. It's like when you're functioning from reaction patterns, there is no choice. There is no space to actually do something different. You're grooved in based on what the button you push or someone else's pushes in you. So for me, the bars was like the key tool to that, because what it does, it adds in space. It starts to take away those reactionary patterns. It dissipates the energy of those. you add in a little bit more space before you jump to your push button system. You go, wait a second. There's a little nanosecond of space here. I could choose to go into my old pattern, or I could choose something different. And that's really the path to start to create your life you're living and your reality very differently. That, more than anything, is like my greatest with the bars. And when I notice I'm getting more stressed out, or not even stressed out, just really busy, if I'm creating a lot, when I start noticing those reaction patterns start coming in and I start jumping quickly or getting pushed again, the bars is the one thing that actually adds more space so that I can actually start to choose instead. So that's just to kind of have that in there of like, how often do you function like your reactionary patterns are you? First of all, they're not. That's not you. Be aware that that's how the majority of the world functions. Everyone's operating like a little push button start reactionary system. And what can you actually employ so that you have more space with that pattern and be able to interrupt it to create something new?
Wow.
That's very different. Yeah.
That is so different. And that just reminded me of when you're in relationships or family situations. Like this past Christmas, I chose to get my bars run almost every day. Yeah, it was every day that I was with my family, and I had so much more space then. And those buttons that family can be so precise and good at finding those little things. And this Christmas, I just had so much more space and freedom. And to actually be able to have a tool like that you can use to unlock those places where you feel like, I don't like that about myself. Like I just responded that way, or I feel upset about this, and I don't like that about myself. Like instead of sitting there in judgment, I can actually just have my bars run and it dissipates. And it's not even a doing. It's like, I just get to lay there and receive or gift a bar session, and it dissipates for me too. So the stuff is really miraculous. I have another life hack with the bars. If there are places where you're super reactionary, like for me, I used to have crazy reactions if anyone would talk about drugs, if anyone was around me on drugs, if I watched a movie about people on drugs, these altered states, it would freak me out so much. So if you have something in your life where you kind of usually respond a certain way to, and it's not pleasant, you can even watch a movie or a TV show or have a conversation with somebody while getting your bars run on the topic. And that can be I've seen people who had lifelong phobias, that their phobias disappeared. So even something intense is like feeling like you're going to die if you're in the presence of maybe someone has a pine cone phobia, or whatever it is.
The scary pine cones.
Phobia might be. Or the softer versions of that is I can't deal with when somebody tells me what to do, or when my family kind of sees me as this smaller version of myself that I was years and years ago and treats me like I'm still that. I just flip the fuck out. And consciousness can include swearing, which I love because it judges nothing. Have any of you guys, and you too, Lauren, anybody on here, have you guys ever run bars and either had a conversation about something that used to be really reactionary to, or watched a movie with the topics like that?
I find this is really helpful with money stuff. You know what I mean? Like last year with launching my book, it was a very expensive project and really, really pushed the boundaries on really what I thought I could create financially to support a bigger project like that. And I went through a lot of interesting moments. And the one thing that really added a lot of ease was going and trading with my friend, having her run my bars and actually talking about it. Because as I did all the points of view, even these really off the wall stuff that I had picked up on wasn't even mine, or was mine, I didn't even realize that I had bought it somewhere, started to reveal themselves. So as you talk, the energy comes up, and the bars actually helps to dissipate it in the moment. So for me, that really changed last year, and also a lot of the choices that I was willing to make. Because as I was met with a choice point where it's oh goodness, that's going to cost another 10 grand, I would be able to go have my bars run, talk about all these things where I would be stopping myself because of that, and actually have again space to choose where I wasn't in my reactionary pattern of that's not really doable. It was wait, how could I create that with ease? So for me, that's just one example of where I really use it, and it did allow me to create greater and more. But I work with people with like insomnia, where we talk about what comes up at nighttime while we run the bars, and all of a sudden they can sleep for the first time through the night.
Wow.
You know, anything that kind of really triggers you or is up in your world, if you do this while you chat, not even need to processing, just while you talk about all your insanity, just starts to go away.
Wow. So it sounds like there are all these kind of like, the word like glass ceiling came up when you were talking about that. Where like, well, this is like my outer limit of what I'm willing to have in my life. Or, if there are places that you've just said, well, my life is just like this. I wonder what it would create to have a bar session and just talk about it. And if you are getting your bars run, maybe even for the first time, or trading with somebody, if you already know how to do it, feel free to use your words with them. Like, you can let them know, like, I don't really want you to tell me what's wrong about me or tell me anything. I want to be able to just like talk and be, maybe be willing to pay somebody for a session and just be able to say all of these things. Because sometimes feedback isn't really what we're looking for. And a lot of us are really kind of like, we desire to contribute in any way that we can. Some people are, like a little overly helpful sometimes. So feel free to just let people know too, like, hey, I'd like to just kind of like talk and talk and talk. Is it okay? Like, can I talk your ear off while we run bars, and then we can, take turns doing this? Because, but even so here's the other thing. Even if people do bring up other stuff and they like challenge you on things, having your bars run during that conversation is probably the one place in the world where you want to even like, where you can do that and still have more of you after that. Like, how many situations have you had a conversation with somebody, maybe asking advice, and you come out of the conversation feeling like you have less of you, or like you've been invalidated, or somebody hasn't seen you or really taken the time to hear your perspective and your point of view.
And I just want to piggy off that for a second, what you had said about the glass ceiling. It's not that something has to be wrong with you, or that you have to be trying to change something specific when you have a bar session. Like with me, with my book, it was just I was creating bigger than I ever thought I could. So having a bar session allowed me to go even bigger than I ever would have thought possible, which was such a gift. And that's not a fixing something that's wrong. I met a glass ceiling of what I thought was possible, and I'm going beyond it. Thank you very much. Here we go. And so it can be utilized different ways. Yes, I started like stress, anxiety. I wanted just to be peaceful and calm. Now it's like when things come up bigger, that's a go-to tool. And also when I'm creating so much bigger than I ever thought was possible for me, and I reach that boundary, that outer glass ceiling, I'm like, cool, bar session, talk about what's coming up. There's just more space afterwards to kind of go, I can go. And also maybe not if I don't want to, but it just gives me more freedom to actually choose without those points of view and that solidity of that ceiling that I'm butting my head against currently. So whether you're looking to fix something, or whether you're just creating greater and unraveling again, moving more to the wealth of your being and creating yourself as bigger in the world, how could this actually contribute to you doing that with ease? Yeah.
Cool.
Hey, girls, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, this is Lori. So, I was doing some work with Dr. Joe Dispenza. Like, I didn't go to a class, just watching videos, and he has a meditation and stuff like that. And he talks about that you need to get into almost like a different altered space. And now those are my words. I don't want to, and what I'm aware of in the energy of his work is that people will receive healings of their body. Okay. And so what's your gal's awareness on what the bars can create and or the access tools, with regards to something like that? And do you guys get my question?
With the body stuff?
Yeah. Because like he says, you got to come out of a meditation change, like forever change. Like it's like you get to that space of like no point of view, where like there's no thing and whatever. And then you at that space can begin to receive like the healing that your body, that you desire to create in your body. And yeah, go ahead.
It's just, first of all, when you say that, there seems to be this like goal that you have to reach before you can actually receive anything. And this is a tricky one, because this is very permeated everywhere and very insidious. Like, I need to fix or get to a certain level before I could actually receive what's going to heal me, what's going to contribute to me, that sort of thing. So I would say be aware of that point of view. And that, again, is something insidious of like, okay, well, you have to reach this state before you could actually receive or move beyond whatever. I'm sorry to interrupt, but that thing was just like screaming at me.
No,
Yeah.
I'm really glad that you did that, because like I've been asking the questions because I did the meditations for a while and stuff like that. And I mean, I'd feel really yummy when I would come out, and I still always go back to and use them every day is either, if not bars, the Access tools. And I was wondering what was kind of sticking me with regards to that. Because like I'm aware that it does work for some people, yet what is it that, like, it's like, is it only possible that way? And I don't think so. Like, I think it's possible many ways. And yeah, so it's almost like I was aware of a part that works and getting stuck by the part that doesn't work, if you get what I mean.
Totally. So all the truths with a lie attached.
Yeah.
Everywhere, like something in all of these systems was true for you, and it was like light and yummy and delicious. I get it. I loved, oh my God, me chanting Sanskrit for 10 minutes was like exhilarating. You know, the candles would be going. There was just this like deliciousness that occurred. That was super light. Some of the other stuff wasn't, but then you get stuck because you have to take the whole thing as one big container, if you will. So all the plays that there's been a truth, something that's true for you, but with lies of heaviness that actually don't work for you, will you destroy and uncreate all of that?
Yes.
And all the ways you've lumped them together.
Yeah.
Bought and sold it over and over and over and over again. Right, wrong, good, bad, pot, pot, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. Yeah. Georgia, what's your awareness with that? Yeah.
Well, it's definitely more of an advanced, it's like a weird clearing that probably won't necessarily make any cognitive sense, but there was something about the energy of no thing and thing and no thing were brought up. So let's just do a clearing. I don't even know what it means, but I just recall that there's some energy that was matching. So all the thing, no thing stuff, can we destroy and then create all of that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right, wrong, good, bad, all nine, pod, poc, shorts, boys and beyonds. Because it's weird, because if you look at the energy of no thing, that's actually a thing. It's not like an absence. It's not like there's space or peace there or nothing. Like there's actually an energy. So that's what we're clearing. Thing, no thing. Can we destroy and then create all of that?
Mm-hmm.
Right, wrong, good, bad, all nine, pod, poc, shorts, boys and beyonds.
Yeah.
And I find, like, I know when I was doing the meditation, it's really common to judge yourself. Like, how good was that meditation session? Like, how much did I get out of it? What did I accomplish with that? But is that actually limiting what you really receive from it? Like, what if what you really are creating just by being or sitting in a meditation session or by interacting with somebody goes so much into, like, what if there's so much beyond what we can really see and beyond even what we can perceive, but we're also perceiving it at the same time? So what energies can we be to start to acknowledge ourselves for what we're creating, and just kind of be grateful for ourselves and know that what we're choosing is magic and it's miraculous, and there might be, and there probably are, aspects to it that we don't really get that are at play, but with the universe, with consciousness. And be sweet with ourselves in regards to that.
Yeah. And it's also interesting too, people do this with bar sessions all the time. You know, I'll have new clients come in and they're like, oh my God, the first time I passed out. It was so relaxing. And this time my head was so busy. I don't think I did it right.
Oh.
And so having the conversation beforehand, like if you do gift bar sessions or you have a business with it, having a conversation of like, look, it's going to be different for everybody. And not only is it different for everyone, it's different every single time. And it's still super effective and it's still beautiful. And what if it's just what's required? So giving people the allowance beforehand of, it may look different. It may feel different. There's going to be different things that come up. It's because you're different every time we do it. That's such a gift, because again, those expectations and those goals, you know, how much of that, what you're talking about, Lori, is that goal of like, okay, cool, this is what it's going to be like. This is what you're going to feel like afterwards. And after that, you know you've received. Instead of being like, it may look different and how does it get better? And really and truly, what's going on? What is being cleared? What is being created that you're not acknowledging? So having those conversations with yourself, first of all, giving yourself that allowance, but also if you do have a business, I find before I have someone on the table for the first time, if I'm teaching a bars class, I always bring this up because it allows people, especially coming from other systems, to go, oh, wait a second, receiving doesn't look a certain way, it looks a myriad of ways. You know, I taught in San Francisco for a while. I'm in LA now, but I was based up there, and all of my bars classes were like Reiki masters, somatic energy psychologists, you know what I mean? Like people who had done tons and tons and tons of work, which was amazing. But being able to have these conversations, I got super aware of how many points of view receiving had. And also what these practices were supposed to give you or what you were supposed to aim for. And that's the huge difference with the bars. There is nothing. It's just having more of you and allowing yourself to be in the moment.
Yeah. Oh, I love that, Lauren. And it reminds me of sex too. Like if you have an outcome in mind of this is what it's going to be if it's awesome, like you can't go from like point A to point like Z trying to get to this thing and have it be like fun and exploratory and playful and silly. Like it, yeah. Like it's just for some reason I was thinking like, wow, that's really similar to sex. Like it's just different. Literally every single time you can receive something different. It's different from sex in a lot of ways too, but it's what if it can just be this kind of exploration that doesn't have a specific outcome in mind, because then the actual result and what is created can be so much greater. Because any result that we have, it's been cognitized. We have this idea. So that's only what the mind, the cognition can really get to. So that it excludes every other possibility that's greater, that's beyond what we can imagine. So there are these crazy things called quantum entanglements, and they're in the universe, and they're creating stuff with us, and with our thoughts, and with our bodies, and with our being, and with what we're choosing. And if we choose to have a bar session, that can create so much more than I sleep better at night. But that can happen too. Like that can be created also, but it might be something way bigger. And for me, that's what was always so exciting about meditation and about access consciousness and about all of the things that I've pursued is I'd like to play with something that's greater than what is normally talked about, normally explored. Like I perceive energies and things, and probably a lot of us do. Like we can kind of feel or tell if there's a weird energy in a room when we walk in, and exploring the way that we can be in the world with having us not having anything, not as like us not being at the effect of anything, but us actually being able to affect the world and create something that's different and greater. And I'm just so grateful that we could have a conversation like this, because it's been a long time coming.
Literally, George and I got on the phone with each other, and I think within like 2 minutes, it was like, oh, this.
Yep.
There's a conversation people are desiring to have. So thank you all so much for coming to play with us. And I hope this contributed to you and just opened your eyes and took some of those judgments and expectations and outcome-driven behaviors and really popped the lid open. Like literally and truly, if everything was at your disposal, everything was accessible, you could use whatever gave you a sense of peace and helped you create whatever you desired, what would be possible, you know?
Yeah.
And if receiving didn't look like you thought it had to look, what is here to play with, you know?
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Well, if people would like to play with you more, and where can people contact you, Lauren?
They can find me at laurenpolly.com. That's my website. You can also find me on Facebook. Lauren Polly Coaching is my professional page. I have a Facebook group called Life Without Limits. That is kind of more of an interactive group. I'm usually in there kind of asking questions and processing people, and a little bit more interaction I find there. But yeah, any way that you would like to come and play, it's exciting to see what all the possibilities are. And Georgia, they can find you.
Well, I have a website called areyoubeingominated.com, and some of what we even talked about today even relates where, like, I do telecalls and series and private sessions about being able to walk through the world and really be able to dominate in any situation and not be dominated by anybody, whether it's abusers, bullies, narcissists, anybody who's just giving you a hard time. So it's kind of like time to play with stepping up and being a leader in the world and not being stopped by anyone or anything, including yourself. So that's it. AreYouBeingDominated.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for coming, and enjoy your bar sessions if you're trained. If not, there are practitioners all over the globe. Just go on accessconsciousness.com, search for bar sessions near you. You can put in your location and people will pop up. Follow whoever pops off the list. That's your innate knowing going, this person. Be able to go and play and maybe take a class or two. Like, there's just a lot of possibilities out there, but this is one amazing tool just to really, bust the doors open. So thank you all for coming.
Yeah, thank you all very much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
I'm ending the meeting.
Awesome.